Hello, Riff listeners. Thanks for joining us on another episode today. We are in a series right now, so whether you're listening to these episodes as they drop or if you're catching up, we are in a series called Love Handles. And we want to invite some conversations here on the Riff with some guests and people who've been in relationships, marriage, post-marriage, post-divorce, or single again, or single right now. And so today we are teeing up a great interview with the McMurturys. They've been lifelong North Pointers, and we've got a great interview for them. So let's dive in.
Well, welcome to another episode of The Riff. I'm really excited because today we're going to talk about relationships with some friends of mine. We're in this series called Love Handles at church, and I know there's a lot of people who are in a relationship or looking towards a relationship that today will be helpful. And my friends, Gina, Shannon McMurtrey, thank you for joining us on The Riff. Can you believe we're here?
No.
Glad we are.
For many reasons.
Yeah, I'm thrilled that you are. Thanks for being with us. So let's introduce, I'm sure everybody knows who the McMurturys are. In case one of our listeners doesn't, let's do a little 411 of the McMurturys. So let's start with marriage. How long have y'all been married?
We've been married for 29 years.
Is that true?
29 in September.
Okay, almost 29 years. Did you know it was September?
I did. Okay. Yep. It's been 27 of the happiest years of my life.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh, I was going to say 25, but whatever. Not consecutively, cumulatively.
No. You don't want to string them all together.
Yeah.
So you all have kids. You have two of them.
We do.
Okay.
Yeah,
and give us a little life update with them. Where are they at?
Well, we are empty nesters.
That's awesome.
So our oldest, they're both, we shot that bow way back, and they're both on the East Coast. Our oldest, Caleb, is married now. So this is a whole conversation for him and his new wife.
I love it.
And then Cameron is in New York City.
Okay. They're very good now. Gina, you run an interior design special gift you have that you've been turning into a business for how many years?
It'd be 12 this year. I can't believe it.
Well, what is the business? It's
GMI Design Group.
GMI Design Group.
Yeah. So
right.
yeah.
And so really quickly, no judgment, but what do you think of our design here?
It's strong. It's very strong. Strong game. I love it all.
Awesome.
I love the drama and the gold and artfully placed greenery.
You're not going to believe this. We did it ourselves.
Really?
Yeah. Shocker.
Did you paint this one?
I painted the Jesus painting actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
But thanks
Very
for
good.
noticing.
Very good.
You know,
I do
if
like
you ever
Or
need
Beauty and the Beast, more the Beast side.
like it.
We may need an intern, so if
Yeah.
you're available.
No,
if you ever get bored,
yeah.
I'm sure you don't have anything else to do.
Oh no, I'm interested. I'm wildly interested, depending on the day. Now, Shannon, I was watching Wheel of Fortune recently.
Awesome.
And
Good choice.
right before that, because I
Yeah.
didn't want to miss the beginning, the opening round, was KY3, and you were on it.
Really?
So you were talking about cybersecurity. That's kind of what you do. Tell us a little bit about the life of Shannon McMurtrey.
So I teach at Drury University. I teach cybersecurity there. I've been there now for almost 6 years. I'm in my 6th year. Before that, I taught at Missouri State University for 17 years, so I've been in the classroom for a while. And then before that, I started an e-commerce company called Cart32, and that's really where I learned security, was protecting credit card data. So been in the IT industry for a long, long time.
So when you started eCart, that was back in the days where people were thinking, do we really need e-commerce?
Yeah.
Like, is that really going to happen? Turns out it happened.
Yeah, you mentioned KY3. We registered their domain name. We registered ky3.com and set up the first web page for them and educated them about the internet. And really, that was the mid-90s. So we were educating everybody about the internet because it just really wasn't a thing yet. So.
Yeah, I think it's going to stick. So, and then you traveled internationally talking about cybersecurity and
I get
all
a lot
sorts
of
things.
cool opportunities to teach all over the place.
That's awesome. Well, one of the things that has been a really value add for North Point is your investment in relationships. You have believed in the importance of preparation and fine-tuning and realigning relationships. You've taught classes, you've done groups. I know that's something you've done through the church individually. It's been a big deal for you. And I've seen it, I've watched it. You've helped me, Shannon. You've been my accountability partner to help me remember my anniversary for several years now because I missed one, accidentally scheduled a board meeting on my anniversary night.
Spectacularly, yes, you did.
Yeah, and I happened to do it a second time as well. But now with your auto reminders, I've been 3 years.
I put a calendar reminder, I think a week or 2 weeks out. So
yeah.
I like giving you that heads up.
That's good. But I want to talk about relationships. And I know there are some people who are listening who they are living in just marital bliss right now. And so we want to encourage them. Some people are living in commitment and trying to figure out how to make this thrive. And then others might be, they look at their past and they don't find any sense of relationship success, and maybe their hope is dwindling or their hope is in the next or the new. Yeah. And so today, let's just take some time and let's talk about relationships. So what I'd like to start with, and then you could pull me any direction. When you would do a class, kind of talk about what are some of the classes you've done at North Point involved in relationships, who would show up to those classes, what type of people, and what were those classes kind of designed for?
Well, I can speak to that initially. We've done a little bit of everything. We've done just regular small groups, do a Bible study. We've done marriage-specific classes on parenting, classes on new relationships. So we've kind of covered the spectrum.
Yeah. When you've done some of these, I think you've also done some pre-marriage, intensive focuses. Mm-hmm. What are some of the things that you would say as you look back that some people who come into a relationship and they're committing, they're about ready to get married or they're newly married, what are some of the things that you found people are surprised that they need to know about relationships that they haven't even thought about? Have you had some of those conversations that were kind of eye-openers for people of the average person or a lot of people don't even think about this when it comes to relationships? Anything jump out to you?
You know, one thing real quick, I think both of us would want to make clear right off the bat, we are not marriage counselors. That is not our expertise. That is not our education. We're just two people who love each other a lot and who want to try to share that with as many people as we can. So one thing that I think surprises people is making it real clear right up front, counseling is a good thing. We've had marriage counseling. There's nothing wrong with marriage counseling. It's just like when you go to the doctor because your elbow hurts or you go to the eye appointment because you're not seeing as well. Sometimes you need another set of eyes on the situation. So that can be very helpful.
I think another thing that is surprising, especially people that are coming through the church or have a Christian mindset, is that a Christian marrying a Christian doesn't mean blissful marriage forever. Right. And we can attest to this. I mean, we've had pivot points in our relationship, and I think it was a surprise to us that, okay, he's a Christian, I'm a Christian, it all should be hunky-dory, and it is work.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what you're saying is something, when I was growing up in a church setting, mm-hmm. Or a camp setting, even Bible colleges, the number one goal of a Christian finding the right person is they have to be a Christian, and usually that fell on a list of only one goal. That's it. Yeah. And so it is shocking that I think it is important that you find someone who shares that faith value.
Absolutely.
But you're saying there's a lot more to healthy relationships than just being able to find a church you both jive at.
Absolutely, because, every Christian comes with junk, and I think that you forget that. Yeah. That there's always a backstory in addition to, and that shapes you. And that makes it hard. Whenever you live a life with somebody, you can have a love for God and it still be hard. Yeah. So I think that takes a lot of people by surprise.
Let me pull the string a little on your guys' relationship. How old were y'all when you met and then got married? Tell us a little bit about that journey.
Well, that's going to be a point of contention because Shannon thinks we dated a couple of years before we did. It was not a date.
Was that wishful thinking on Shannon's part?
She chased me for quite a
while. No. So we had a short courtship, which started on a ski slope in Colorado. on the ski lift at Copper Mountain.
Is that where you met?
No, we met at a intercampus ministry party.
Okay.
So, chasing a greased pig. Not a lot of people can say
No,
that.
you know what though? That is one of the more underrated places to meet a potential spouse.
Isn't it? And I think my first thing I said to him was, poor little piggy. But a couple years later and a couple not dates later, he invited me to a ski trip. He was a campus minister at MSU with his students. And as you do as a campus minister, you're the one that's in charge. So the last ski day of the trip, we finally got to ski together, and it was the ski lift up, and we started talking about what we might want in somebody to marry. And I was thinking somebody like you, and he was thinking somebody like you. And we were pretty much inseparable from then.
Wow.
And that was January of 93, and we got engaged on my college graduation day in May of 93 and got married in September of 93.
Wow.
So that whole week, I was obviously watching her very closely. And
That's just a very good campus minister.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was trying to do my thing, but I was also paying attention to her. And what I saw was someone who served. I mean, every opportunity she got, she was setting up the room, she was helping with food, she was getting things ready. It was never about her. And that's when I knew.
Wow. That's awesome. Okay, so you're hitting some things that, looking back in the rearview mirror, what an important value of someone who's got a heart that's arrows out.
Yeah.
Rarely do I hear someone on The Bachelor say, "Man, I want to give this person a rose because look at the way they kindly handle conflict."
Yeah.
But I'm like, talk to us about what are some things looking back that you think should be values we look for in a potential relationship?
Well, I think service for sure. Arrows out.
Yeah.
I think how they treat people around them. Are they snarky to waiters? Are they kind to their parents? Are they gracious to people that are not like them? Those are all things that show a character of somebody that is for a lifetime. Those are not things that you typically just put on whenever you're trying to impress somebody. So those are all really good character traits to look for beyond beauty.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
And I think also, are they humble? Is there humility there? Are they teachable? We started to touch on this at the beginning of the conversation, but everybody comes into a relationship with different backgrounds. I spent most of my childhood in a single parent home, so I really didn't have a vision of what dad looked like or what the husband looked like. Gina came from a family that is just, incredible for generations going back. Just great model of how to do things. So I spent a lot of college really paying attention to relationships that were healthy and trying to figure that out. But our early years of marriage were certainly filled with a lot of conflict that was really me bringing my baggage into the relationship and not really knowing how to navigate that. So that's where some counseling came in early that was very helpful. And also just learning how to communicate, learning how to say I love you in a way where they hear that you love them, not just words, but maybe it's through actions, maybe, it's through time, whatever it is, but really getting to know your spouse well enough so that this is what love is to them. This is what they hear.
The good thing about having a longer courtship is that you tend to learn those things, how somebody speaks love or receives love. Our relationship was very quick, and so we learned that in holy matrimony.
Yeah.
And so that has been interesting.
Not so holy matrimony.
Not so holy matrimony. Yeah. I remember once in the first year, I wanted to throw something at him so bad, And I didn't.
I think you did.
No. Oh, yeah, I did.
Yeah,
it was a pillow.
Easy to forget on the throwing side.
Well,
a little tough to forget on the receiving side.
I remember that I wanted to throw something at him, but I wanted it to be hard and hurt.
Not leave a mark hard.
Not leave a mark. But I'm like,
leave
okay,
a memory.
this pillow's going to have to suffice.
Okay.
So I think I did.
Yeah. Wasn't it a skillet?
No, it was a pillow.
Oh, it was a pillow. Okay, yeah,
Anyway,
you're right,
so
you're right.
it's we knew early it was going to be a work in progress.
Okay, so here's what's fascinating to me, and part of it is because I feel so seen right now. Two people who you both had shared faith of, okay, you want God to be number one, and you both shared character traits on your average day of pointing out to serve others. You still drove each other batty sometimes.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that led you to counseling, and what are some of the things that early counseling or mentors helped you navigate?
I'll tell you one story real quick. When our oldest son was about 18 months old or 2 years old, he wasn't very old. He was just barely walking, if I'm remembering it correctly. We were in the kitchen having a conversation.
Loud.
That was spirited. You can't tell it now, but I used to have red hair. We both had red hair and were spirited. And so we were having a disagreement. And we didn't know how to have healthy conflict at that point. We hadn't learned how to communicate. And so what stopped us dead in our tracks was our little boy hugging our legs, walking back and forth, hugging our legs. It's like, whoa.
Wow.
Okay, we're done. And from that point on, I think we got really serious about trying to figure out how to do this in a way that wasn't going to scar him, that wasn't going to end our relationship, and just learning how to communicate. So learning how to have healthy conflict is important. Learning how to do that in a way that's constructive. There's nothing wrong with conflict. There's no such thing as a relationship where everybody agrees on everything. But you have to do it in a way that leads to health, that leads to a good outcome. And we didn't do that early, so that was something we learned.
Another thing later on was we learned of the book, The Love Languages. Mm-hmm. And that really was pivotal. And I think going through that, because I know that Shannon worked really hard for our family. I never doubted that he loved me. I just didn't hear it how I needed to hear it.
Okay.
And you know how it works. It's a spiral. Because of that, I probably didn't speak love in the way that he needed to hear it. So that was so instrumental in our relationship. And then realizing, well, I'm speaking love to you. I do love you. Well, no, you're not. Well, yes, I am. Well, no, you're not. So that was whenever we really needed a mediary. And that was really... I would say that was the biggest turning point in our relationship, was learning how to effectively speak love to each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let me ask a couple questions. One is, someone's out there listening, they've been married. They're in a relationship. They probably got enough wins to keep them going, enough losses to keep them confused. And they're wondering, when would I know that counseling is going to be helpful for our marriage? What would you say to them?
I think anytime you get to a point where you feel like you're not making progress, that's going to be helpful. Counseling comes in a lot of different forms too. We have some incredible, godly Christian friends that keep us accountable, that we seek counsel from, and we provide counsel to. You talk sometimes about intentional conversations. Those friends have been just godsends to us over the years. So staying in Christian community is a big piece. But there's going to come a point where that may not be enough. I mean, you may still not be making progress. And having a professional counselor is key. Certainly, anytime there's abuse or something that is, beyond pale, that counseling needs to happen fast and immediately. But I think anytime you feel like you're just at a loss.
Yeah.
I think whenever you have such a diverse background situation as we did, there's going to be ingrained ways that you think that are not going to work very well. for example, are the way that we had conflict. My parents had no problem being loud, but I always knew that they loved each other and they resolved it and they moved on. That was not the situation with his childhood. He assigned, loudness and arguing with with a whole range of negative connotations. And so if you have trauma or a dysfunctional relationship in your background, I really think it's very important to start that counseling, individually and probably as a couple, so you can develop some healthy strategies to do most anything. I mean, it could be from parenting, it could be from, how your finances are going to look, and definitely in communication and conflict. So counseling, I think, is something that honestly should be looked at early. There's always, people tend to think, okay, pre-marriage counseling, and then that's it.
Right.
And I think that it should go pre-marriage counseling and for sure the first year, because if you're not living with somebody, you learn a lot. And, simple things like keeping the toothbrush out and this little dried toothpaste in the sink could really drive you crazy.
He does that, doesn't he?
Well,
He looks like a dry toothpaste guy.
No, I've trained him pretty well in almost 30 years. So, those things do tip people off if they don't know how to be flexible and they don't know how to be considerate of each other.
So the challenge is when you figure out on-the-job training of marriage, you develop some habits quickly, even if they're dysfunctional, but they help you get through. Because a lot of times they'll say the dysfunction in our lives were how we survived through a tough time, and now we just go with it. And there's probably people in their relationships that have some probably what feels normal habits that need to be looked at and coached through. And I think good book. I think you talk about community. We talk about counseling. Let me ask this question for you all. How do you find Christian community? And I know some at North Point, sometimes it's depending on the campus. Sometimes you can feel very anonymous, even when you're going to church, and it's not as easy as maybe my parents when they were growing up to just instantly have community because you went to church. Yeah. What are some things you would recommend to even have people develop that kind of Christian community if they're Christians?
100%, I'd say get involved in small groups. That's the place to start. But take inventory of your relationships. And if you have influences that are toxic, if you have people that are talking down your spouse or giving you input that's not good, cut it out. I mean, get it out of your life, because you don't need that kind of input. So seek out new friendships, seek out new relationships through small groups, through North Point service opportunities. That's a fantastic place. Find people who are walking in the same direction you are, and then latch arms and just keep going that direction. But don't allow people who don't share your values, who don't share your worldview, to influence your perception of your relationship.
That's good. One of the things that I think could be helpful, and I know this might sound weird, especially in a pandemic 2022 culture, is to see someone who you feel like is having success in an area you want to have success. Right. Approach them and say, what are the odds we can take you to coffee? Right. Do you think people would be receptive on a mentor or couple would say, hey, would you sit down at Panera with you?
Yeah,
like, do people do that?
Yeah, we've had that happen several times, and very happy to do it because it's important.
Right.
We are passionate about healthy couples and helping them make it through the hard times. So, yeah, absolutely, and I think that's very good. And that's another good point for, again, in the post or the current pandemic 2022 world. If you're in a situation where you could be around people versus, say, just an online community, it's easier to see people and observe them for a little bit. I mean, just sometimes body language, how they interact with each other with a look or a touch, that tells you a lot. And those are the people. It's hard to really get that whenever you're isolated.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, because I want to make a point that relationships are key. I love our online campus. They're killing it. They've been a godsend through the pandemic. But don't give in to the temptation to always turn it on online when you really could go. It honestly is safe and okay for you. but you choose the convenience of the online campus. Make sure that you invest in relationships, because not only do you need body language and eye contact and time with other people need that from you. And so you're investing in it's a two-way relationship there. So I would encourage people to get back out of the house and to come to the campuses and to interact.
Yeah. Let me walk through some real practical questions. Let's say there's someone here who is listening and they are wanting a healthy marriage. They don't necessarily have a model that they're looking back from as a template. What are some things that can help prepare them and position them for what God might have for them relationally one day?
You know, I was really impacted by a sermon a long time ago. I don't remember where I even heard it, but the verse that was the focus was, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And the point of the sermon is, where you invest, your heart follows. And so if you invest in your relationship, your love, maybe you're not feeling love, maybe you're feeling like your relationship is dry, invest in your spouse. Do the dishes, fold the clothes, vacuum the room, figure out what it is that you do or you say that makes them hear that I love you. And when you're making that investment, you may not feel it. You may not be doing it because you're crazy in love at the moment, but what you'll find is your heart follows that investment. So I think that's key, is investing.
Yeah.
One thing that, as the boys were growing and starting to date, and as Caleb was getting serious about his wife, and they were talking more, but Shannon would always guide them and say, what you want to do is you want to run towards your goal, if it's faith or service or whatever. And then you look to the right and the left, and you see who's running aside you. And those are the people that you want to, kind of drift over towards,
Right.
if your goal is service and a life of Christ, and run that path, but look to see who's, running alongside you.
I love that.
And that brings up, because I think I stole that from Andy Stanley, or it might have been you. I don't know who, but
we're both North Point.
Yeah, exactly.
But
North
he's
Point.
doing a great job at one of our campuses in Atlanta.
The Atlanta campus is killing
Killer
it.
job. Thanks,
So
Andy.
the Right Now Media has some just fantastic resources, and that's another thing I would point people to.
Yeah.
If they're kind of in that spot where they're not feeling it, they're not feeling the passion. Marriage is for a lifetime, and lifetime is meant to be enjoyed. It's not meant to be survived.
Yeah.
So if you're in a relationship where you feel like, we're surviving, but we're not really having fun, we don't laugh anymore, we're not enjoying this, figure it out. Don't be content with that.
What about the question of, does that mean I married the wrong one?
Right. Yeah. No, it doesn't. It may mean that you're not making the investment. So start that journey, start that path, and start that movement. And I think another thing that we've seen over the years, I don't know where I heard this, but somebody made the point that in Genesis, God created man, God created woman, and he said it was good. It wasn't God created man, God created woman, God created kids, and it's good. That initial primary relationship is husband and wife. That's the relationship that needs to be tended to first. Once that's where it's at, you can take care of the kids. But if your whole marriage is about getting the kids to soccer and taking them to swim lessons or doing whatever the next thing is, and it's all about the kids all the time, guess what happens when those kids graduate and leave? All of a sudden you look and you're like, I don't know you. I don't even know why we're doing this. And it seems like there's 2 times when we see marriages crater, and that's about, 6 or 7 years in, when they've just given up on trying to change, and they think maybe the grass is greener on the other side. So,
or the kids have started coming and, they've changed. Well, of course they've changed. Their role has changed. The world has changed. Everybody should change along kind of together. But sometimes that doesn't get,
And then the second spot is when the kids graduate, when they leave, because what's held them together for all this time is now gone.
Right.
Yeah.
And so's the relationship. So big surprise.
Leanne and I had a real challenge for the two of us of figuring out the new normal when we became empty nesters. And it was a little shocking to us because everyone talks about, man, it's going to be empty nesters. It's going to be awesome. And we experienced, part of that is that identity shift of like parenting and they're not there. And then, us. And for us, even counseling during that season helped us make sure we figure out quickly what are the new healthy disciplines to thrive here. What are some things and what are some things that you would say if you're married with kids right now, what are some practical things maybe someone could do to make sure they're investing on them, not just the kids right now?
Well, for sure. And I know that this is going to sound so much easier than it is because that's the way it is. Date night. Try to have some semblance of a date night just to continue to invest in getting to know each other. Because like I said, as you bring children into a relationship or whatever, you do change. And you guys need to change together. So that could be that whatever your goals were here, they may be a little bit different here. Yeah. Well, what is the goal for here? So in the early lean days, that may just be staying up a little bit later after the kids go to bed and sit on the porch and talk. How was your day? And try.
That doesn't even sound expensive.
It's not expensive. And
I mean, I've not seen your porch.
No.
I bet I have. It's nice.
Yeah, thank you. No, if you don't have, money to go out or for a babysitter, just take some time, maybe 15, 20 minutes, and make a commitment to not talk about the children and try not to talk about just conflict in the day. Try to ask questions. Sometimes, it may seem ridiculous to have a preset of questions to draw from, but whenever you have not invested in your relationship, that is a great place to start. Because you're committed, and I'm going to do this cheesy little thing where I'm pulling out a question and ask you, what's your favorite pizza? Or what's your favorite vacation if you can go anywhere in the world? You would think after 5 years you would know that, but no, because we get busy doing our own thing. So start with that. And then as you can, maybe do a babysitting co-op switch where you have some friends where I'm going to watch your kids one night, maybe twice a month. Start with that. But you need to invest in continuing to develop your understanding and relationship and investing in that because you don't want to get 19, 20 years down the road and go, I don't even know you. I'm pretty sure I don't even like you.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I know that watching your relationship, knowing you all as friends, seeing how you've invested in your community, in your inner circle, and in your church is making an impact. And my prayer as a pastor is for anyone listening to say, okay, you're never going to get anything worth living if you just drift there. So be intentional and invest. You didn't marry the wrong one. I think that thought that you mentioned is no, you didn't. Is because if I feed that thought, that's the easy out to stop investing.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and I think we talked a little bit earlier about having community, having people who think like you do and are living life. I think it's important to have your own communities too. Gina has some women that she spends time with. I've got guys that we go hiking or camping or whatever from time to time. And those relationships apart from one another are important too, because we're also getting counsel there, right? We're encouraging each other, asking those intentional questions, and hopefully, all moving in the same direction. So that's important too, to allow people to continue to change. This is not the same woman that I married 30 years ago. I'm not the same guy that she married.
Same
30
marriage,
years ago.
different husband.
Thank God.
Yeah.
But as we've evolved and changed, we've done that together. And those conversations, have to continue through a lifetime.
Yeah. Well, I love being able to have the time to talk to you all about this. I know that this has been helpful for those listening, those of you who are listening, wherever you're at. I hope you feel seen by God, even that this would be a moment where He encourages you to do something today that helps invest. And you might not have quick results, but you'll have long-term impact. And so we'll have some resources on the show notes, some things that we think could be helpful, whether it's Right Now Media or different books like Love Languages or whatnot. And so invest, and your marriage is worth it. Your future is worth it. and we're praying for you. Shannon, Gina, thank you very much. Love what you're doing. Love that you love each other so well. Shannon, I can't wait for your text next year to make sure that I remember my anniversary. It means a lot to us. So, thank you for being with us. Thanks for joining us on another episode of The Riff, and we'll catch you on the flip side.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Riff. Submit a question for the podcast at northpointchurch.tv/podcast. We'll have a brand new episode every week, wherever you find podcasts.